Today is January 30th, 2021, the 10th anniversary of Fred Korematsu Day of Civil Liberties and the Constitution. Hello everyone, I'm Karen Korematsu. I'm the founder and the executive director of the Fred T. Korematsu Institute and the proud daughter of Fred. So what I like to say on this special day is happy birthday, Daddy. He would have been 102 years old, and his legacy continues to grow and to inspire. Welcome to our first virtual Fred Korematsu Day event. This day is about our civil liberties and the Constitution. That's what we should emphasize in recognition of my father's fight for civil rights. There are other states that recognize this day as well. Hawaii, the Commonwealth of Virginia, Florida, and New York City, all in perpetuity. And there are legislative bills in different houses and states. Governors have issued proclamations, and city councils have their special days, like in La Mesa, California, which they just had their event, San Diego. Next will be Fort Lee, New Jersey, I believe today, and other cities across this country. Fred Korematsu was the first Asian American to have a statewide day named after him. So he's an inspiration to all. The Japanese American incarceration of World War II was not just a West Coast story or a Japanese American story. It's an American story. And we need to teach the lessons of history so that we can participate in civic engagement and participation in a purposeful way. We need to carry on the conversation. And as you see in our program, we are emphasizing our work in education, advocacy, and public outreach. Our work has evolved over the years from curriculum to inspiration. And we hope that you will enjoy our program today. I'll come back to you at the end to wrap it up. But in the meantime, sit back and listen and think about what can you do to make a difference in this world.
Hello, I am Congresswoman Barbara Lee, and I proudly represent California's beautiful 13th Congressional District. I want to first acknowledge and thank everyone joining us virtually and from your homes. Thank you, Karen Korematsu, and everyone at the Fred T. Korematsu Institute who has brought us here today to celebrate the life and legacy of the great Fred Korematsu. This year is the 10th anniversary of the Fred Korematsu Day of Civil Liberties and the Constitution. Today, I am so honored to join those in the East Bay and across the country in honoring the life of Fred Korematsu, an Oakland native and principled civil rights activist. During World War II, Fred Korematsu resisted Executive Order 9066, and he challenged the government's internment of Japanese Americans even after the Supreme Court upheld the unjust incarceration of more than 100,000 individuals. He never gave up the fight for civil rights. I was literally speechless when I met Mr. Korematsu. What a humble and gentle man he was, yet I felt his strength and his love in such a profound way. I have a picture of Fred and Rosa Parks together in my office as a reminder of the courage and sacrifice that they made for others. Mr. Korematsu spoke up as a champion for the voiceless. His story is such a reminder of the power of standing up for what is right and refusing to accept state-sanctioned racism. And so, on this day of honor, let us recommit ourselves to speaking up to fight injustice and getting into good trouble, as the late Congressman John Lewis would say. January 20th, yes, it was a historic day. We welcomed President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris to the White House ending the national nightmare of the last 4 years of the Trump presidency. We now have the first Black woman and first woman of South Asian descent serving as our vice president. And perhaps above all, we will have a daughter of the East Bay in the White House. And although we finally have an administration that will work to crush this virus and to unify this country after years of division and hate, we must not forget the challenges that our previous generations faced. We are reminded by Fred Korematsu's incredible courage and conviction to continue to fight for racial justice, to protect civil rights of all Americans. In these challenging times, we must carry on his legacy. Thank you so much.
We're marching today to dramatize to the nation, dramatize to the world, that hundreds and thousands of Negro citizens of Alabama, but particularly here in the Black Belt area, denied the right to vote.
We lined up in twos to walk from Selma to Montgomery. I got in trouble. I got in the way. It was necessary trouble. And we started walking across the Alabama River, across the Pettus Bridge, and we get to the highest point on that bridge. Down below, we saw the Alabama State Troopers. And when Major John Cloud said, "This is an unlawful march, will not be allowed to continue," and before we could even get word back, he said, "Troopers advance." And you saw these men putting on their gas masks. I knew then that we were going to be beaten. I grew up on a farm, very poor in rural Alabama. In a family of 10 children, we all had to work from sunup to sundown. It was very hard work. But I also saw segregation. I saw racial discrimination as a young child. I saw those signs that said white men, colored men, and I heard Martin Luther King Jr.'s voice on the old radio.
You're going to be deciding as the days and the years unfold what you will do in life, what your life's work will be. And once you discover what it will be, set out to do it and to do it well.
And the words of Dr. King inspired me. When I would hear him speak, I just felt that he was speaking to me. Like he was saying, "John Lewis, you can do it. You can get involved. You must get involved." We didn't just one day go out and say we're going to sit in. We didn't go out one day and say we're going to march or we're going to go on a freedom ride. We studied. We prepared ourselves. And for the entire school year, every Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m., Black and white college students and some high school students would go and study the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. I believe in nonviolence as a way of life, as a way of living. I believe that this idea is one of those immutable principles that means and ends are inseparable. They came toward us, beating us with nightsticks, pushing us, trampling us with horses, and releasing the tear gas. When I was hit in the head with a nightstick by a state trooper at the foot of that Pettus Bridge, well, I thought I was going to die. I just sort of said to myself, this is it. This is the end of the road for me. I'm going to die right here on this bridge. And to this day, I don't know how I made it back across the bridge, through the streets of Selma, but I do recall being back at the church that Sunday afternoon. And I stood up and said, I don't understand it. Like President Johnson can send troops to Vietnam. But can I send troops to Selma, Alabama to protect people who only desire to register to vote? I think I said to myself, What else can you do to me?
I'll be buried in my grave
So I lost my sense of fear.
and go home to my Lord and be free.
I felt so free. I felt like I crossed over.
We're not going back. We're going forward.
Yes.
And we're going to create the beloved community and redeem the soul of America. We can do it. We have a mission, an obligation, and a mandate to fight for each and every American.
People accuse me from time to time of being too hopeful, too optimistic. But I think being hopeful, being optimistic is part of being a leader. The struggle to bring about change is not a struggle that lasts for one day, or 1 month, or 1 year, but it's a struggle of a lifetime. Maybe it won't happen in my lifetime, but I know somehow, in some way, that we're going to create a national community, a world community that is at peace. We all have roles to play.
Greetings on Fred Korematsu Day from the shadow of the United States Capitol in Washington, D.C. at the National Japanese American Memorial. I'm Joan Mooney, President and CEO of the Faith and Politics Institute here in Washington, D.C. We are a service organization to the United States Congress. At the Faith and Politics Institute, we work with members of Congress at the intersection of their values and their public service. We're probably best known for every year since 1998 bringing hundreds of members of Congress, 3 United States presidents, members of the diplomatic corps, as well as historians, educators, and students from throughout the country, along with us to retrace the footsteps of the American Civil Rights Movement throughout the South, most notably in Alabama, Selma, Birmingham, and Montgomery, led by our board chair emeritus, the late Congressman John Lewis. In 2017, we were absolutely thrilled to meet Fred Korematsu and have her join us in California as we explored Asian American immigration, and in particular, the 75th anniversary of Executive Order 9066 on the incarceration and internment of Japanese American citizens throughout the United States in concentration camps like the ones you see behind us. Fred Korematsu was at Topaz in Utah. Karen came with us to tell us her story. We brought members of Congress along with us on that journey to learn the history. Many people were not informed when they were growing up in their school classes of our history, our dark periods in our history on issues of race and civil rights. And we felt it was important at that moment, particularly when the Korematsu case was being mentioned in terms of an immigration ban in 2017. Congressman Lewis, as you heard, had adopted a nonviolent philosophy that in order to achieve lasting social impact, that whatever you did, that the means and the ends must be inseparable. And so, teaching other members of Congress that in politics, how you get there is important as where you are going and where you are headed. While the arc of the moral universe is long, it bends towards justice. It's not a clear-cut bend. It's back and forth, and we as a society must work together to ensure that over time that our rights and liberties are protected and that the struggle doesn't last for one day or 1 month or 1 year, but as Congressman Lewis said, it's a struggle that lasts a lifetime.
Tony Thurman here, California State Superintendent of Public Instruction. I have the honor of serving our 6 million students and our hundreds of thousands of educators all across the state, 1,000 school districts and 10,000 schools. And it is my pleasure to join you in commemorating Fred Korematsu Day, which we celebrate on January 30th. Fred Korematsu Day is the first statewide day to commemorate an Asian American in all of these United States. And we're so grateful for the 40 years of struggle, sacrifice, and service that Fred Korematsu brought to bear that ultimately led to the apology and reparations for the internment of Japanese Americans. In these times when we see so many acts of hate and racism and violence, we need the celebration of Fred Korematsu Day more than ever. I'm grateful for this year's theme, Get into Good Trouble. And I'm grateful that Dr. Karen Korematsu has brought this message for us and for the work that Dr. Korematsu continues to do to amplify the legacy of Fred Korematsu Day. We continue to see so many challenges around racism and police brutality against African Americans and others. We see acts of hate all throughout our capital, white supremacists bringing violence into the Capitol and attempting to overthrow our government. And that's why we need to do, as Congressman John Lewis said, get into good trouble and celebrate great Americans like Fred Korematsu. It's been my honor to celebrate Fred Korematsu Day, going back to my time in the California State Assembly, when we cut a ribbon to open a brand new school in my former assembly district called Fred Korematsu Middle School. My daughter is an alumna of the school, and it has been my honor to celebrate Fred Korematsu Day and to be with you as we celebrate Fred Korematsu Day now. As we continue our work, let us continue to support causes like the initiatives that we've created, like our Education to End Hate initiative. It gives us a chance to counter acts of hate and racism, to counter Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, and acts of hate of all kinds. And to remind folks that we can use education to promote inclusivity and working together and to counter hate. I want to thank personally Dr. Karen Korematsu for her leadership of the Fred Korematsu Institute. I want to remind all the educators out there that you can get access to great curriculum by going to the Institute's webpage. They've already provided more than 12,000 toolkits to support educators all over the nation. And I want to thank Dr. Korematsu for her work as we continue to lift up stories about ethnic studies and giving students a chance to see people who look like them, to learn of the contributions of their ancestors, to hear about the experiences of people of color that don't always make it into our history books. Thank you, Dr. Korematsu, for your work on our virtual ethnic studies conversation and for your testimony and leadership in helping us to craft a balanced model ethnic studies curriculum that will be a treasure for all Californians and all in our nations. So at this time, it is once again my great pleasure to say thank you, congratulations, and happy Fred Korematsu Day.
My name is Cynthia Chen, President of the Asian Pacific Islander School Board Members Association. It is indeed a great honor to be part of the 10th anniversary Fred Korematsu Day of Civil Liberties and the Constitution. For nearly 30 years, the Asian Pacific Islander School Board Members Association has advocated for an educational curriculum which more adequately represents the contributions and viewpoints of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, and has developed coalition with other educational, ethnic, and community organizations to promote equitable and quality education for all children. We have been working to create the high school ethnic studies model curriculum for the state of the California, and in particular, the Asian American Ethnic Studies Unit. We also work hard to establish ethnic studies course to be an one-semester graduation requirement for high school across California. Moreover, we are excited about our ongoing efforts to strengthen the ethnic studies model curriculum to be inclusive of all the Asian American ethnicities. The original ethnic studies model curriculum contained 7 lessons under AAPI unit. It was reduced to 3 lessons for the second version in summer of 2020. APISMA was able to lead a statewide coalition to advocate for a major expansion of the AAPI unit to now contains 20 lessons that illustrate a more robust breadth of the diversity of the AAPI community. We also fought hard to include the Asian Americans and the model minority missed lesson plan. It should be listed as the first and foundational lesson in the AAPI unit. It should be rewritten to remove stereotype and teach us about the systemic racism this country shamefully has demonstrated going back to and before the Chinese Exclusion Act. This is the type of education advocacy that APISMA works on, and we could not have achieved this goal without the help of Dr. Karen Korematsu and the Korematsu Institute. On behalf of Asian Pacific Islander School Board Members Association, I would like to thank Karen and Fred Korematsu Institute for the collaboration work of education advocacy. On a more personal note, I'm a proud new and recent donor of Fred Korematsu Institute, as I wholeheartedly support its mission of educating to advance racial equity, social justice, and human rights for all. Thank you.
Fred Korematsu was an ordinary person who took an extraordinary stand. By resisting the U.S. military orders that imprisoned more than 120,000 Americans of Japanese descent during World War II, he shows us how anyone can stand up for what is right, no matter the odds. My name is Stephanie Wager. I am the president of the National Council for the Social Studies. Founded in 1921, the National Council for the Social Studies is the largest professional association in the country devoted solely to social studies education. NCSS engages and supports educators in strengthening and advocating for social studies. With members in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, and 35 countries, NCSS serves as an umbrella organization for elementary, secondary, and college teachers of history, civics, geography, economics, political science, sociology, psychology, and law-related education. The NCSS membership represents K-12 classroom teachers, college and university faculty members, curriculum designers and specialists, social studies supervisors, and leaders in the various disciplines that constitute the social studies. NCSS has long supported the work of the Fred T. Korematsu Institute, and the Institute has worked across the country to support social studies educators and empower them to teach the ideals demonstrated by Fred T. Korematsu and why it matters for civil rights today. Karen Korematsu carries on the legacy of her father by working tirelessly to ensure teachers are supported in teaching about her father and the impact of the incarceration of Japanese Americans during World War II. The Korematsu Institute Curriculum Toolkit is a treasure. The toolkit has been shared with over 12,000 educators and has reached over 1 million students. The toolkit is now available digitally, making it even more accessible to educators across the country. Countless educators have also received professional development because of Karen's tireless efforts to reach teachers across the country. The Institute has conducted presentations at the National Council for the Social Studies annual conference for several years, and countless other state council conferences and opportunities. The impact of this work is immeasurable and profound. On this 10th anniversary of Fred T. Korematsu Day in California, I reflect on how this work is needed now more than ever.
The coronavirus is raging and on the move.
This virus doesn't discriminate. It attacks everyone.
Small businesses around the country are bearing the economic brunt of the coronavirus pandemic.
This is truly an unprecedented situation.
'20 is an unprecedented year with COVID-19 ravaging beloved community organizations. In the face of these challenges, we started to organize. We rose up to combat the economic and social pressures felt by our community, and we realized our community's unique struggles. As we got deeper into our work, it was apparent that misinformation spread about COVID-19 was disproportionately impacting Asian American community members. As we heard the stories of our shared Asian American community struggles, we realized that collective effort could lead to tangible support for our community. That's where our vision to raise $1 million for our community members impacted by COVID-19 was born. So we reached out to partners that shared in our mission, and we launched our Raise a Million campaign to raise $1 million for struggling Asian American businesses and organizations. At our first Raise a Million event, we raised $17,000 in 2 hours that ultimately helped support restaurants and buy hundreds of meals for frontline workers and Black Lives Matter activists. Since that first Raise a Million event, we've been engaging our community in many ways. And that was just the beginning. There's so much more we can do together. As the national conversation has continued to grow, we've stood in solidarity with the Black and Brown communities. In the face of all this uncertainty, we've also continued to work towards our goal of organizing for the Asian American, Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities. In hosting Chapter 2 of our Raise a Million campaign, we'll be raising money for the artists and creative organizations that inspire us. With your help, we can outpace our last fundraise and provide even more support for those most impacted in our community. Learn more about how you can help join our efforts to raise $1 million for our community at hateasavirus.world.
Hi, I'm Yuki Tori, and I had the honor of being the Fred Korematsu Institute's intern this past summer. As a part of my internship, I had the pleasure of helping plan this event that you were all attending virtually today. In addition, I also did work regarding anti-harassment bystander intervention trainings, and I'm going to go more into the second part of my internship regarding anti-harassment bystander intervention trainings. So as a part of this, part of my internship, I took the main trainings offered by Holla Back and wrote a proposal of everything that I learned and how the Fred Korematsu Institute could support their work. Holla Back is an organization that offers many different types of anti-harassment bystander intervention trainings. But before I go into more of that detail, I wanted to share with you the main takeaways and the most significant things that I learned from the trainings. One of the most significant things that stood out to me from the trainings is that most people who have been harassed report that they would have liked someone to help support them. But most people said that when they were harassed, no one supported them. And I think because of this, Holla Back created these trainings to try to get people to feel comfortable taking some type of action to intervene and support the person who was harassed. I think the main theme from the trainings is that there are many smaller ways to intervene and support those who experience harassment that are not direct actions that you can take. Those less direct actions are just as helpful in ending this cycle of harassment, and Holla Back will give you the tools to intervene. So as I said before, Holla Back offers many different types of anti-harassment bystander intervention trainings. And I'll share with you the trainings that I took. I took the Stand Up Against Street Harassment public training, Bystander Intervention to Stop Police-Sponsored Violence and Anti-Black Racist Harassment training, Bystander Intervention to Stop Harassment Toward the LGBTQ+ community, Bystander Intervention to Stop Anti-Asian, Anti-Asian American, and Xenophobic Harassment, Bystander Intervention to Stop Anti-Asian, Anti-Asian American, and Xenophobic Harassment De-Escalation Training 2, How to Respond to Harassment for People Experiencing Anti-Asian, Anti-Asian American Harassment Training, and their most recent training, Online Bystander Intervention Training. Now, if any of the main takeaways or anything that I shared about Holla Back resonate with you, please visit their website to figure out how you can be trained and how you can bring these trainings to your organizations. I'm confident that their work will help empower you to end harassment in your communities. Thank you.
We expect the worst to happen, and the curfew notices were posted on the telephone poles. And then after that, about a week or so, the notice for the evacuation.
I didn't think that the government would go as far as to include American citizens to be interned without a hearing. And then later on, they changed my draft card to 4C, which is enemy alien. In those days, if you're an Asian, people automatically think you don't belong in this country. You're not an American. And I thought that was wrong. After I was arrested, and I went there and I lied on the cot and I said, gee, jail was a lot better than this.
In 1942, an ordinary American took an extraordinary stand. Fred Korematsu boldly opposed the forced internment of Japanese Americans during World War II. After being convicted for failing to report for relocation, Mr. Korematsu took his case all the way to the Supreme Court. The High Court ruled against him.
Fred Korematsu's case represented the trial that Japanese Americans never had. This was an entire population that, without evidence, without trial, without due process of any kind, were simply swept into internment camps, many losing their property, some even losing their lives.
The real significance of Fred's case is that it raised for the first time, the central issue was the internment itself constitutional?
It was, I think, for him, a personal shock of recognition. Who am I? Am I an American? What does it mean for me to be an American?
If you look at Fred Korematsu, you see a very ordinary man who just wanted to be left alone, but who defied the United States government because he knew it was wrong.
Some names of ordinary citizens stand for millions of souls. Plessy, Brown, Parks. To that distinguished list, today we add the name of Fred Korematsu.
What would you do?
If your constitutional rights were taken away.
If you were imprisoned without a trial.
If you were forced to leave your home, your job, everything.
And live for years behind a barbed wire fence.
This is what happened during World War II.
When the United States incarcerated 120,000 Americans of Japanese descent.
What would you do
if it happened to you?
The internment of U.S. citizens during World War II is history.
But it could happen again.
If we don't fight to protect our civil liberties.
Fred Korematsu did that.
In 1942, he resisted the forced incarceration of Japanese Americans.
And took his case all the way to the Supreme Court.
Korematsu showed us how any ordinary citizen can stand up for what's right.
No matter what the odds are against you.
Today is important that we remember Fred Korematsu's story and learn about this injustice.
So that our future is different.
So that we stop repeating history.
So that no one will take our rights away again.
Every January 30th,
a growing number of states commemorate Fred Korematsu Day.
Of civil liberties and the Constitution.
Shouldn't every state do this? What can you do?
What can you do? One man made a difference, and so can you. Write to your state legislators and ask them to support a day in your state to honor Fred Korematsu. Visit korematsuinstitute.org to learn how you can help. We've come to the end of our program. A little different, you must admit. However, it still takes many to put together even a virtual event. First of all, thank you, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, for your inspiring words about my father, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule, because we all know you have so much work to do in Congress. California Superintendent Public Instruction Tony Thurmond, thank you for your generous words, and I look forward to working with you this coming year. Cynthia Chang of APISMA, your organization is so vital to the education for the state of California, and I hope there are other states that have the same type of organization. Ethics studies is important for all students to learn and to participate. It's a way of teaching about respect. It's a way to teach about diversity and inclusion, and we need that more now than ever. Our work in education and collaboration is what makes the difference, I hope, for all of us. NCSS is a fabulous organization that I've been working with since 2012, and thank you, Stephanie Wager, for your lovely words in talking about our curriculum toolkit, and I look forward to working with you more in the years to come. Hate is a Virus is a new organization that I only recently learned about. And because of the pandemic, this is a positive move of how we can make a difference. We need to educate about the racial injustice in this country if we're going to make change. Faith in Politics is an organization that I cherish, and I look forward to working with Joan Moore in the years to come. Please take the Hollaback anti-harassment bystander training. Even if you think you know, you may not know. And you want to share those types of experiences with other people, because we never know where we're going to get into those kinds of situations when our morals are being challenged and when, like my father said, we need to speak up. Thank you all for being with us. The Korematsu Institute certainly has a lot of work ahead of us. Thanks to Eric Paul Fournier, who is the director of my father's documentary, 2-time Emmy Award winning, of Civil Wrongs and Rights, the Fred Korematsu Story. We received a JAX grant from the National Park Service that is now going to help us to expand that film and bring in the relevancy of my father's fight for justice. Thank you to my brother Ken for all the graphics that he has done for us on this event and with the Korematsu Institute. Certainly, it's wonderful to be able to lean on him as well. Thank you to my staff, to Michelle. I have to say to everyone, she's been in the hospital, not COVID, thank goodness, but she rallied at the end to help us put together this virtual event. And Sharon has been keeping track of everything that we do. Akemi has been helping us with our grants, and Courtney has been helping us with our education. So thank you all for keeping us in the straight and narrow, and to my board. To all my supporters out there, our supporters, our new ones, I hope. We can't do this work without you. We need you. And everyone can make a little difference, and we appreciate that. It's amazing the donations that we receive from across this country, from teachers, from students. It truly is inspiring because they tell us that our work is important. And certainly we all see with what's happening in this world that we all need to make a difference. Congressman John Lewis and Fred Korematsu were two people that worked and challenged our government in the face of adversity. One person can make a difference, and so can you. Please go to our website, www.korematsuinstitute.org, for more information, for our curriculum materials that's open to teachers and parents, because we got this cry from parents saying, help, we need materials because we have to teach our kids at home. And that's what we do. We're all in this together. If we all just did a little bit, we can make this country and the world a better place. So thank you all for joining us today and to help to remember Fred Korematsu's legacy. The 10th anniversary of Fred Korematsu Day and civil liberties in the Constitution is one that we are very proud of. And going forward, we hope that it will be established in other states as a reminder that we need to keep fighting for our democracy. It's very fragile. And as my father said, stand up for what is right and don't be afraid to speak up. Thank you.